go.
Yeah.
Come on,
yeah.
Jake. Come on, Jake.
Hold it! You're right. Let's do it. And welcome to the Oddity Archive, the show that eventually gets around to all the stuff seen in the intro sequence. Except for El Touchy, that may never happen. I mean, original copies of that thing are so stupidly rare that last I checked they were going for over $200 a pop. But anyway, we are down to the last two topics seen in our opening sequence that we have not discussed. One being, of course, El Touchy, and the other being the usually Panasonic 3DO. Now, I had intended to touch on this way back in the initial run of episodes a couple years ago, but I didn't, for I think one very good reason. I couldn't get my hands on a working 3DO. But finally, just in the last few weeks, I have gotten my hands on a working unit. That sounded dirty. But anyway, I figured now that I've got it and I've been able to test it and I've had my history lessons sitting around forever now, we can finally get into that wonderful 90s multimedia freak-out gray area thing. It'll be great.
If you're not playing on a 3DO system, what are you playing with?
At the time that the three-dimensional object, or 3DO, was the latest and supposedly greatest thing in gaming, we're talking 1994, a much younger and cuter version of myself really wanted one of those things. Of course, at $700, it never happened. In retrospect, it's probably for the best, as not only was I not a very good gamer, but after recently experimenting with one, I'm convinced my younger self would have been sorely disappointed, especially due to the choose-your-own-adventure nature of all too many of their titles. I mean, I could already get that from one of those Goosebumps books. But I digress. In more recent years, I've come to the conclusion that the 3DO, and of course its older brothers, the Commodore CD-TV and the Philips CDI, represented the seemingly logical, conceptual next step in home video interactivity, even if it wasn't entirely intentional in this case. Similarly, Pioneer was working at their own, albeit less streamlined, laser-active system, which allowed for Laserdisc movies and games, plus interchangeable cartridges for more video games, karaoke, and so on. However, the 3DO's spin on this multimedia gray area was decidedly from the video game end of things, at least initially. The 3DO, according to Electronic Arts founder William Trip Hawkins, was born from a meeting with designers Dave Needle and R.J. Michael in 1989. Needle and Michael drew a rough sketch of an idea for a gaming console onto a restaurant napkin, and Hawkins, noticing a certain overlap between this design and his own vision for a new console, opted to join up with Needle and Michael.
Consumer electronic medium where you actually do something, you're involved, you're creating your own experience.
In 1991, Hawkins officially launched the 3DO Company to finally properly design and ultimately release this new console. Another one of Hawkins' ideas was that, perhaps somewhat out of necessity, the 3DO should become a basic equipment and format standard, much in the way that, say, VHS was a standard. Due to a lack of funds, 3DO would not be manufacturing their own consoles, so like JVC had done with the VHS VCR, Hawkins licensed the 3DO technology to whoever was willing to take it on. It wound up being mostly Panasonic. As for the titles themselves, the idea was to charge a nominal royalty, $3 per sold copy to be exact, making for a more or less open platform for game developers. More on that later.
6 months ago we had the promise, and now we have the reality.
The circuit board is the heart of a 3DO interactive compact disc media player. Panasonic will release the first 3DO player in October under the name Real. Wall Street thinks 3DO is real as well. The company's initial stock offering last month made headlines and raised nearly $50 million.
After a rocky development period, the 3DO was finally released on October 4th, 1993 in North America only, at a cost of, according to a 1994 Entertainment Weekly article, $700, and it included the racing driving game Crash and Burn as the pack-in title. Depending on your source, this may have been the only title available at launch. To the best of my research, there were at best 6 games available as of the October 4th launch. Either way, not a promising start. As for the high console price, that was brought on by the fact that manufacturers were only making the consoles, not the games, meaning that they couldn't sell the consoles as loss leaders as Nintendo and Sega did.
This is flying. This is real flying. This is racing. This is real racing.
Despite the 3DO's constant use of full-motion video and, of course, their bravado-drenched TV ad campaign, industry reviews were mostly tepid. Not bad, but not great. Public response was middling to boot. Sensing this, or perhaps just trying to follow the CDI's lead, 3DO attempted to broaden their appeal. By 1995, an optional mouse was made available. A digital video adapter allowing for the playback of video CDs soon followed, though save for the cheapy Gold Star brand, the carts were only released in Japan. In 1996, a compatibility card for PCs was released, allowing PC users with CD-ROM drives to play 3DO games. However, it was all for naught. The 3DO had only sold around 2 million units worldwide, most of them in Japan, and the plug was pulled on everything sometime towards the end of the year. A proposed sequel to the 3DO, called the M2 and in development by Panasonic, was also scrapped shortly thereafter, the technology subsequently being used in ATMs. The 3DO company proper soldiered on as a game developer until May of 2003. As I mentioned earlier, the 3DO wasn't explicitly a gaming console, especially later on. But there were some things that all 3DOs can do that are not video game related, and one being that they could all read photo CDs, because there were so many of those floating around back then, and they could all read CDG, or CD graphic discs, and those were, and of course mostly still are, karaoke titles, though as far as I know the 3DO never had any sort of microphone support. And going off on just a slight tangent here, back in the early 90s, there were some major label albums that came out that utilized this technology, and I actually have one of those titles right here. This is one of Laura Branigan's later albums, and as you would expect, it has the lyrics on screen, but it also has a lot of pictures of statues for some reason.
Never in a million years, never in 1,000 tears. If I could ever hold you, I'd never let go.
Unsurprisingly, the 3DO could also double as a standard CD player. However, where it set itself apart was in the fact that it utilized a very early light synthesizer, which allowed for, if you will, visual interpretations of whatever you happen to be listening to.
What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from the mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Lord, they're turning into flames. Now the whole field's caught up by the woods, the barns, the gas tanks for the automobiles, spreading everywhere. It's coming this way now.
Okay, so it's just a tad glitchy by 21st century standards, but back in 1993, that was some pretty serious stuff. Anyway, this would be where the non-video game novelties end. And indeed, this would be where normally we'd start looking at some of the usually weirder titles for something like this, which we will do. But before we get to that, I think it would be in our best interest to just take a quick look at the system itself. I promise it won't take that long. And so here we are with my 3DO setup, just a quick little look at it. And this is from the second wave of systems that Panasonic had out. Initially it was the FZ1, and it was the big chunk of home theater equipment that you've been seeing in my intro all these years, with the tray that comes in and out like a DVD player. And partially in response, I think, to the complaints over the high cost of the units and stuff, Panasonic decided to try and consolidate everything and make it a little more compact and eliminate some of the moving parts so they could bring down the price at least a little bit. And the result was this, the FZ10. So instead of a DVD tray sort of thing, you've got a top loader. And there's only one button on this. It's on the side, and it's on and off. And you got two lights here, one for power and one for access, meaning the CD is looking for something at a given moment. And if I pull it up here, you can see that you have a whopping 1 controller input. But you could use up to 8 controllers with this thing, but how you do that is you'd have your controller and you just plug another one into it, so you'd be daisy chaining them. And I have mixed feelings about that, because if you're a sore loser like I am, you know, and you're playing a game with me, I might just unplug your controller just because I'm such a sweetheart. But anyway, the controller is kind of the bastard offspring of a Sega Genesis and a Super Nintendo controller, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. You got the D-pad, you got the 3 buttons, just like a Genesis, and then you got the 2 top buttons, just like a Super Nintendo. But even more than that, and this is actually proven kind of handy in making this episode, you got a headphone jack and a volume control. So that's proven to be quite nice. And another nice thing about these 3DOs is that you don't have to worry about proprietary cables and stuff. You can use just standard stuff that you'd buy at Walmart or Radio Shack, or name your favorite place here. So you got your RF input just like on an old Nintendo. You got S-Video, you got composite, you got an expansion slot if you got yourself a digital video card for it or something. And of course the channel switch if you're going RF. And the AC. So I kind of like it when the parts are interchangeable, not necessarily the AC adapter, but the AV stuff at least. And I have a disc here. I just want to show you real quickly. It's a real common one, and it's real as opposed to fake, I guess. I don't know, if you buy a bootleg one of these things, does it say fake on it? Anyway, the sampler CD, if you do get a 3DO, it's nice to have because you can try everything. You can test the system, you can try out little games, you can watch some of the video stuff, which never really quite came to pass, but you can at least have a look at how it would have been. And so, just thought I'd show this to you real quick. Now let's get down to, of course, this being the archive, some of the weirder titles for this system. As I mentioned earlier, the 3DO was unique in the fact that as long as you were willing to pay that $3 per disc sold royalty to the 3DO company, just about anyone could make titles for this system. And as you could imagine, there were some unintended consequences.
Hi, my name is Jane. We hardly know each other, but that's about to change. You're going to get to know a lot about me, maybe even more than you. While you're playing with your little mouse trying to push my buttons, you know what I'll be doing? Resisting your every move. I know what you want. I know exactly what you want. You want me to strip down naked so you can examine every inch of my body with those perverse, beady little eyes of yours. But you see, I'm not easy. Well, I'm not that easy. I've met lots of men like you, shy, quiet, retarded types who spend hours in the darker room playing with their little mouse. They're the type that pays for a drink with a credit card, the type that buys a girl dinner only if she gives him dessert. Well, if you think I'm that type of girl, you got another thing coming, mister, because I don't do one-night stands, I don't date musicians, and I don't roll over just because you bought in this game. Fair warning, I'll be resisting your every move and enjoying your every mistake.
So, who do you want to make the first move? If you want John to do it, hit A now.
Jane may be Daddy's girl, but she's no slouch when it comes to getting what she wants. Besides, John's really a wimp. Jane makes a move on him before he can count to 10. Watch out, John.
These two aren't ready to meet each other yet. Have them do it later on.
You're the star. You went out and did it, overcame and underbid it. You're the star.
How bizarre. When I stop and think about it, then I simply want to shout it from afar.
You went out, close the deal, it's only natural you should.
At my mother's.
What a nice son. By the way, nice tie. Your mother give it to you?
Well, you've done it again. All John wanted was a little nookie, and you matched him with a nun wannabe? And now he's headed for dinner with his mother, who's arranged a shotgun wedding. Fine ending you created. You'll never eat lunch in this town again.
And sorry, ladies, that's about as close to objectifying men as the adult games get. And at least Plumbers Don't Wear Ties made some attempt at gameplay. The games released by Vivid Entertainment don't even give you that. They seem to just be edited versions, I think, of existing adult films. And unsurprisingly, there is not a whole lot I can get away with showing you here. And you should be very glad of this fact, actually.
So, you're looking for a roommate? Well, I had planned on placing an ad. My boyfriend moved out, but I hadn't even gotten around to it. I guess you're in luck. Well, great. When do I move in? I brought my van, and I'll bring my stuff right up. Buy their own. Cora!
Did I mention that these so-called games are just a teeny bit random? Anyway, it just goes that much farther into reinforcing my belief that the 3DO was only loosely a gaming console. Anyway, heading back into more mainstream territory, slightly anyway, is a game that was actually a bestseller over in England. Meanwhile, it raised the ire of a few politicians here in the States, and of course the associated political bootlickers, which led to this game getting banned in a lot of the major toy retailers in this country, like Toys R Us and the now defunct KB Toys.
Therefore, when I see the obvious sexual aggression against the woman in Night Trap, which kids do have access to, I worry that we're not only perpetuating the gender stereotypes we talked about in terms of skills, but we're running the risk of increasing the probability that these boys who are playing these games are going to be more sexually aggressive and abusive as a result of the experiences they've had with the games.
And now you know how the ESRB game rating system got established. Anyway, in case you didn't hear it from Senator Lieberman there, the name of this game was Night Trap. And in my opinion, this was actually a pretty creative, albeit a very, very frustrating game. And the idea is that a house is being invaded by ninja vampires, I think, while a sleepover is going on. And you are a member of SCAT. No, really, that's the name of it. Some sort of security monitoring firm or something. And they've sent a mole into this sleepover thing. And you're going through monitoring each room in the house and setting off traps whenever you find one of these ninja vampire weasel thingies. It took me way too long to figure even that much out. Anyway, yes, this montage that you're about to see consists of my own gameplay. And also, yes, that is the late Different Strokes star Dana Plato in some of the footage.
Get a picture.
I'm Sims, SCAT Team Commander. SCAT Mission 230. 5 teenage girls on their way to a weekend house party at the old Lakeshore Winery house of Mr. and Mrs. Victor Martin. The cable is here, in the back hallway. If anyone disconnects it, you lose control. For good. This is my attack squad. And that's Kelly, one of my best undercover agents. She'll be arriving with the rest of the girls. I'm putting her life and the lives of those other girls in your hands. Don't even think of messing up.
Very special boy.
Back off, Birdface. You just better be glad I brought you along.
The only reason you brought me along is because Mom made you.
Shut up!
Well, I can tell this is gonna be fun.
You with me, Control? We're going in.
Hi! Hi. I was so afraid you decided not to come.
Hey, Sarah. Who's that?
That's Weird Eddie. He's just one of the neighbors.
He's really getting down.
He's really good.
This guy is really wigged out. Hey, Control, check out the house.
The other one.
Bye, Eddie. Nice of you to drop by, Eddie. Oh, and let us know when you want to die, Eddie.
Look, it was your job to protect Kelly and the rest of those girls. But from what I've just seen, the place is being overrun. You've missed way too many of those suckers. Now, until you figure out how to do your job and do it right, you're dismissed. Breaking contact.
Given my amazing limitations as a gamer, I admittedly tend to gravitate more towards puzzles and game show adaptations, and this next game is more or less a combination of the two, which is great for me. Not so great for me is the fact that this is a combination of some sort of game show and a bunch of puzzles, as spearheaded by Salvador Dali, while on every conceivable cold remedy and hallucinogen, past, present, and future all at once.
Find out which of television's tortured talent will be playing this round of Twisted.
Thank you, Twink. Contestant number 1 will sell you the shirt off your back. He's the Clunker King, he's Wormington, and his dog Otis.
Come on down to Wormington's, where service is a slogan.
Great! Just great! And now, contestant number 2.
When she's not racing camels or trading futures, she enjoys mind reading, channeling, and vodka. She knows what you're thinking, Madame Elaine.
1-900 Elaine. I can read your mind, and you should be ashamed.
Throughout the game, I will refer to you by your contestant's name. The object of Twisted is really quite simple. Roll the cyber die, complete the various challenges, and get to the end first. And what happens then, Ray?
Well, Twink, our lucky winner will receive a one-way trip out of this TV wasteland into whatever the hell's on the other side of the screen.
Ooh, I hear reality is just beautiful this time of year. Well, gee, I can't wait to get going. Take a spin! You're on the wheel of torture.
To get off the wheel, press the A button on 3 of a kind. Twisted! We'll be right back.
Each garment is hand-sewn with 198 stitches and is made of genuine 6-carat simu gold.
They're measuresmith. It slices, it dices, it carves firewood. It even performs surgery on those hard-to-reach organs.
And now, back to the game. Feeling brainy? You've got the challenge. Wormington, take the controller and secretly select a row from the matrix. Now, Madame Elaine, take the controller and select a column from the matrix.
Oh!
Ciao.
So to close out this episode on a decidedly more mainstream, but also much more frustrating note, is what I consider to be the all-time worst port from one system to another. Of course, your mileage may vary, but for me, that game would be Mad Dog McCree. And I've mentioned before that I used to play this game a bit as a kid, back when it was a Laserdisc arcade game. And I was kind of happy, actually downright thrilled, to get a copy of this thing for the 3DO so I could, play it again and be able to play it at home. And what I got was actually the most visually unappealing, unintuitive, repetitive, punishing thing I have ever put up with. And my lack of a light gun did not help matters either.
Stranger! Howdy, stranger. We need your help. Mad Dog McCree's gang is taking over the town. The mayor and his daughter have been taken hostage out to Mad Dog's hideout. More important
Hey,
thing.
old codger! Don't tell him a thing!
Ow!
You better work on your sharpshooting, stranger. You only got 2 lives left. There's more inside! You better get lucky, or you're gonna be dead. You've only got one life left. Looks like this good old boy's seen his last gunfight. Time to take him to Boot Hill.
I have to applaud 3DO for its ambition, but the technology just wasn't quite there yet. And really, that was the only thing they were guilty of, in my opinion. They were just a little ahead of their time. Now, there are all sorts of deeper history lessons and gameplays, and there's a couple of 3DO emulators out there now, so my advice to you is if you're interested in this topic and want to delve deeper into it, do it. It's actually surprisingly accessible. But as for me personally, I think this is the point at which I unplug my 3DO as well as pull the plug on today's episode. So join us next time when I discuss the, in my opinion, mother of all crossover home theater computer video game systems, the Philips CDI. Assuming I can get the damn thing to work.
You pick me, 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 you pick me.